Okay, good evening. Here we are, Molten Chat. In February, a little bit later than usual, a week later after my Molten Monthly. So we're a little bit running into things now, into February. All sorts of things coming up next week, which include my wedding anniversary and Valentine's Day, of course. And then Synth East coming shortly after that, which is very exciting. Excuse me, not a great start, thank you. It's lovely to have you here. If you haven't been here before, I'm Robin. This is Molten Chat, where we're here under the guise of pretending to talk about all the gear we saw in the last month and how wonderful and awesome that was. What actually happens is that there's a bit of chit chat, talk to people in the chat, in the live chat on YouTube. Usually play a little bit of music, fiddle around with a module or two. I usually go off on one subject or other for no reason for a while. People talk amongst themselves in the chat, and then we all come back together for a sing-song at the end. That's the basic gist of things. So if you're new here, please grab yourself a coffee or a beer, have a seat, and this may take a couple of hours. I'm fairly knackered. On a scale of 1 to knackered, I'm in the high teens, I suspect. So I don't imagine this is going to be a long one. But then I do get drawn into things, and that can be nice sometimes. But it's lovely to have you here. I'll start off by saying hello to people in the chat. Hello, people in the chat. That was fun. Let's move on, shall we? I've got this different day, so I'm probably going to have this not go right. But hey, good to see you. See, I can't do that with my finger. That's so frustrating. It's not something that you want to hear somebody say. So hi, good to see you, Mike. Good to see you here. That whiskey was very nice. I'm not on the whiskey this evening because the last time I did that, I was squiffy all over the place. I was unable to hold it together. So I'm sticking with the beer. I've got this left over from Christmas, I think. A classic light, it seems to be a bit gooey on the bottom. Classic like IPA. I'll have that in a moment, I think. By Cottage Delight. Lovely. Guinness Zero, that is very, very sad, but apparently it's quite nice. Good. Escape Limitations, well done for making it. I'm sorry this is going to be such a disappointment, but it's really nice that you've made the effort to get here. I think that's what's important. Steve, hi, good to see you. Daniel, Green Day's playing, are they? Is this all to do with the Super Bowl? I did think for a moment there I might have been a Super Bowl alternative, which can be quite interesting for those of us who are not particularly into those sorts of sports. But no, that's on later because it's West Coast, I think, this year. I think I've got that right. So it's not until later, that's what I'm saying. Not until later, so I'm not clashing with anybody at all, as far as I know. A good old game of footy. Fantastic. Skimming down. Hello, Ken. Good to see you. Daniel, The Attic Rocks. Nikki, Swagger. Ken said that already. Nikki, hi. How you doing? Bastian, Daniel, Alien Intelligence Agency. Yeah. Cool. Good to see you. So we've got a little merry band. That's great. I have a particularly special thing to do tonight, which could be interesting. I don't know. But I thought we'd give it a go. Otherwise, I fear it's one of those things I'm never going to get around to doing. What it is, okay, a lovely geezer has got in touch to say, hey, I'm doing an MA, I think it is, in bleepy bloopy music, or some such, and was hoping I might answer a few questions. So I thought Rather than me agonize and sweat over these over the coming weeks or so, I just don't have the time to do it at the moment. I thought we'd throw them in the air tonight and maybe we can answer them together or have some thoughts about them together. I've glanced through them and they are interesting and I think largely out of my area of expertise, only in as much as I've not really thought about it before. So, I mean, being on YouTube like I am means that I can just decide that I'm an expert on things. So I can just decide that I'm an expert on this, and then my opinion will be valid and interesting and worth something. Valuable, that's the word I'm after. So that'll be fun. So maybe we'll do that. We'll do that in a minute or two, in a bit. It should be good. 10 questions. And I'll be interested to get your views on that. But maybe we should slide into that a little bit more gently. Knob Technology, good to see you. Ah, yeah, cold. Yeah, I understand. I hope you're doing all right over there. Yeah, good to have you in the chat, mate. Shrooming? No, I missed that bit. So the way this works is that you're welcome to throw questions at me from the chat. Sometimes I pick them up. Mostly I do because there's not so many of us that the chat's going like crazy. I can usually see those things. I'm very happy to answer questions on pretty much anything. So yeah, so there you go. Oh, now would be a good time to insert ads, says YouTube. No, I'm not going to do that. No. Why would I do that? Why would I piss off all of my people watching? That just seems crazy to me. Anyway, there we go. Thank you. So the other thing I thought we'd do is I have a couple of new modules that somebody sent me. I thought we might have a look at, which could be fun. They're not quite centered. Let's throw some light on those, shall we? Oh. I'm going to go for that button. Does that button work? That button works. Look at that. Right. So these are in from, see, I don't even remember. Trilling. That's right. I saw them. I mentioned them in the Molten Monthly. And now here they are. Isn't that magic how that can happen sometimes? Wish that happened with the really big, enormous synthesizers. But hey. This is great. Now I really like them because of, I mean, simply because I'm a sucker for colours and interesting design. You know, it could be the worstest module in the world, but if it's coloured nicely, then hey, I'm all for it. So what we've got here is the Passaggio over here, and the less excitingly named MC2VQ over here. But you can see fabulously coloured, aren't they? Aren't they just brilliant? So yeah, it's just nice. What can I say? And now in terms of what they do, one of them's a VCO, one of them's a quantizer, both very useful things. The VCO is digital. I don't really care about those sorts of things. I mean, I tend to like analog sounds, and so if something is virtual analog, emulated analog, that's fine with me too, as long as it sounds nice, really. So what I saw from the demo video was that there was just simply a lot of interesting sound coming out of it, and I thought that's nice. I'd like to give that a go. Yeah, I've now heard about 500 times that you can in fact connect audio interfaces to the MPC XL. So I'd like to put out there that my criticism of the MPC XL, which was you've only got 2 bleeding inputs, what good is that, is tempered slightly by the idea that you can actually add more inputs to it via a class compliant audio interface. So there you go. I mean, it's still a criticism because Akai didn't provide that interface. They just allow that opportunity to occur. So that's cool. But my criticism stands that there's still only a couple of inputs on the MPC, no matter how often you tell me that you can connect one via class compliant driverousness. Just means you got to buy more gear. It's not a complete system. Oh, I see the criticism is worse now. That's what you've done. You've made it worse for them. Really sorry. Really sorry. But I'd forgotten how how absolutely dedicated MPC fans are. You know, it's like Electron people. If you criticise a Digitact or a Digitone or one of those sorts of boxes, oh my goodness, the fury that gets rained down. Not fury, the slight correction that gets rained down. Similarly with MPC users, they do love a good MPC. Oh yes, oh yes. So thanks for that, Fletch. It's appreciated. Pretty sure you commented that already on the other video, but it's always good to be reminded. Anyway, what was I doing? I was talking about these, and I'm not even on the big screen. So yeah, okay. So what would be good would be to hear them. Something I made earlier. So what you're hearing is the passaggio. I've added a little bit of modulation to make it wobble. I'll take that out for a minute. That's what you're hearing. Now, I haven't looked at any documentation or anything. I've just plugged it in and had a play. You seem to have a pattern knob at the top here. Which has probably got something to do with this. I should probably plug it into a scope or something. And then you've got an amount down here, which is really nice. So that alone is really quite cool. There's a lot of fun to be had with that. Then over here you've got a couple of shaping tools, ones which skews and one which morphs. So essentially what I like about it is that you've got a sound source which you can slightly morph and change and move about a bit while it's playing, which is nice. So it's not, doesn't have to be static. So what was I doing? I put a bit of that into it, didn't I? Increased, definitely increased. It's just really nice. So yeah, I approve of that. I'll try to do a proper video on it at some point. Yes, I've also got it going through a filter, which is probably not helping. It's probably taking the edge off things. Over here is a quantizer, dual quantizer. You can see that, am I all over that? I'm kind of all over that, aren't I? Yeah, so again, I haven't read the instructions, but I made some guesses and it seemed to come out alright. So you press some notes on here. As you can see, it's sort of throwing itself through them. I really like this little ring of notes. It's initially confusing because you're going, what is that? What is? But no, it works quite well. There, you've got these three different inputs. I'm not entirely sure why, but I'm going with it. And all I'm taking is I'm taking an LFO from DivKid Ox over here. It's just an LFO going in, which is picking out these notes, which is nice. The LFO isn't synced to anything, it's just doing its own thing, which is why this is kind of infinitely variable. I can speed up, which is not going to make any difference because the triggering is on an envelope which is somewhere else, which is part of the rhythm of the system. But slowing down the LFO will just mean it takes longer to go up and down again. See what I mean? See it's going up? How lovely. So that's fun. That's two little modules that are good, straightforward, have a reason to exist and a place to be, provide something, give you an interesting interface here. You could potentially just be picking out notes as you go. So if I was, could I give it something a bit more intentional? I've got the two up there. So I could potentially give it something a bit more synced. If I was to borrow a clock from somewhere. Is that going anywhere? Let's go over there. What's that doing? That's interesting. So I've just put a synced LFO from number 2Me, which is up over here, into this. So that's different now. I'm going to take out those notes. So it should just be happening on the C. So you could just stick like a couple of notes in. Let's sync this up a second. Let me think what am I doing? Triggering this. What am I doing that's going too crazy? This from this. From this. Number one. was interesting. I hadn't intended to do any of that, but that's kind of where it took me. That is, I'm sort of keeping a side eye on the conversation in the chat and people talking about, oh, this is rubbish. Oh, no, it's good. No, it's rubbish. What is it about Eurorack that does this equal amounts of rubbishness and awesomeness depending on your point of view? Don't know. It's very interesting. As somebody asked earlier, am I finding modular more interesting or less interesting over time? More interesting. Or is it possible to even say equally interesting, as in the interest has not dipped? I think there's a journey that a lot of people go on, I think, which ends up being quite true, which is you have a small beginning in Eurorack. You buy a couple of things, maybe a semi-modular, just to whip your appetite a little bit, just to dangle your toes in, and then you get a little bit of modular, a couple of modules, then a row, then 3 rows and 5 rows, then a whole bloody great big case filling up your entire wall. And then after a while you then go, sod this, and either get out and sell the whole lot, or just start reducing down until you've got just a smaller case again. And I think that's very true. I think there's many reasons for that, but maybe the reason that sort of resonates with me, but I'm in an unusual situation in that people send me modules because I have a certain reach and I'm able to help people get their modules heard about, which is an absolute privilege for me. I'm very, very fortunate in that regard. But what I do understand about this sort of ballooning of Eurorack and coming back down again is simply that there's so many options, so many possibilities, and you really don't know what it is you're going to gel with. It's this weird situation where you're having to, it's almost like trying on clothes. You've got to work out what suits you, what it is that sort of works with you. And that means you end up with lots and lots of, not mistakes, but lots of sort of dead ends or little cul-de-sacs that you run off on, where you think, oh, this is going to be brilliant, I'm going to try that out and absolutely have a wonderful time with it, and actually it's not great. Or conversely, because it's never one thing or another, you have a great deal of fun with a particular module, but then you kind of come to the end of it, or not quite sure what else to do from it at that point, and move on to other things. That's also just as valid, I think. There's this breathing involved, this bellows, it's a better word, gallows maybe. This rising of modules and falling of modules all the time. It's quite interesting that I don't know any other area of music where you are so involved in the construction of the instrument that you're playing, it's just endlessly fascinating. And here I am again being endlessly fascinated by just a couple of modules. What I was using was the Passaggio, as we spoke about a moment ago. I should be on this screen talking about this, probably. And and what was I talking about? Yeah, so I had a basic voltage control oscillator that I was playing some notes on, notes that I hadn't really invented or thought of or brought into the equation. I was sending an LFO, so a continuously moving waveform was going into that. But in the way between the two, I put a quantizer, and a quantizer grabs a value at a particular time, holds onto that value and puts it out as a note. So it sort of grabs a value and then it sort of shifts it to make sure that it's an actual musical note as opposed to just a microtonal something or other. And it was that was sending the notes taken from the LFO into there. Now, I couldn't write that. I couldn't have written a piece of music that contained that. Not in that way. And so what I enjoy about this is that you're instructing or pointing a machine to do something which results in music, as opposed to dictating exactly what that is. And that I find equally fascinating. On the other side of things, I had an actual analog oscillator up here called the oscillator. That was kicking out a saw wave that I was running it with the Proteus, which is a module that somebody sent me recently, which is another one of these generative modules that comes up, like a Turing machine, comes up with a bunch of notes. I'm still exploring it, but it's really quite interesting and sometimes very frustrating in that I don't know why it's not giving me more than one note. But hey, it needs coaxing. It's quite an emotional module, is the feeling I get. And that was, both of them were just going through filters, because I love filters. They let you change the tone of things slightly, and it feels nice as that happens, So there you go. I thought that was fun. That was interesting. That's 40 minutes. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to do that for so long. Dare I go wind back through the chat to see how outraged you were by that? Erica braided cables. Yeah, they are really good. Yeah, Erica Synth braided cables. I love them. I almost exclusively use them now. And I appreciate the fact that a lot of them are the same colour, and that can be confusing because I'm having to work out where things go. I don't care. It's an additional problem that I'm happy to swallow just for the beauty of these cables. Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun? Oh yeah, I mean, sure, one could have put in some pauses. Sure, but that's not what I was doing. I wasn't attempting a performance. I was playing with the sound that it had. And so for that, I can listen to the same 8 notes go around indefinitely, pretty much. Are you watching the Olympics at the same time? Watched a bit of that over tea this evening. It's always interesting. And the one thing that I had this epiphany watching the Olympics is that it's all death-defying. I mean, curling to one side. I mean, you might sprain an ankle, I suppose. But compared to running the 100 metres, where you just run the 100 metres, you've got people falling off mountains or throwing themselves into a gazillion twists and turns with a snowboard attached to their feet. I mean, it's almost like every attempt at a medal could kill you in the Winter Olympics. It's sort of, people are made of sterner stuff, I think. Healthy addiction. I don't know about that. I've got problems with my Perkle. I think I was trying to filter the envelope, envelope the filter. I was trying very, very hard, and it wasn't having none of it. And I think I've worked out, so I've got this Perkle here, which I noticed that Milo Melodies was using as his envelope generator, and this has been on the shelf, sitting over there ages ago. And I thought, oh yeah, that's brilliant, because, I mean, that's all I want. I want an AD envelope. I'm not really that interested in big, long, enveloping envelopes. I like just short, sharp ones to throw into filters. And that's perfect for that, except all of my channels are not really working. Now, I built this one, so there's probably good reason for that. I need to investigate a bit. So I was running channel 2 into it, and it just wasn't sort of working. I was trying to work out why, but I cannot work out why at the moment. I'll have to look into that. But also channel 3, I think, is dead, so definitely need to look into that. I was trying to do that. How does a MIDI work on the quantizer? I do not know. I'm assuming... I mean, it's got MIDI out as well, but I mean, I'm assuming it's for choosing the pitch. Could be. I haven't looked at it yet. I haven't done anything other than plug it in this evening and see what happens. Anyway, I'm going to skip to the bottom. Boop. There was somebody who addressed me. Oh, it's all my fault, apparently. Yeah. I've been talking a lot to people about trying to do startup Eurorack videos because it's difficult. I had the foresight when I first started in modular to turn it into a video series, which I think has been largely helpful to people. But trying to dictate to people how they should start Eurorack is very, very difficult. And it's something that rolls around in my head. You know, could I do a video showing what to do? And sort of I could, but it's never going to be quite right because the choices are immense and the reasons are immense. And I think a lot of things I said perhaps in those early videos I don't necessarily agree with anymore. So, but you know, there's no right, wrong way. So it's not as if anything bad is going to happen. What's a collection of modules on the wall behind me? I'm glad you asked, Ken. They are of no consequence. As in, they're not there for a purpose. I had a bit more of a change around. As you can see, all the synths from behind me have gone, as somebody mentioned, but I got rid of that big stand I had. I've simplified things over here. And also, a lot of my synths are now in boxes for Synth Picnic, which has actually helped the tidiness. Would you believe has actually helped the tidiness over here. So that box is on the wall over there, but I had another box which was on the floor getting in the way. So I've decided now that I have this space over here just to screw it into the wall, and it just has a bunch of modules in that I haven't looked at in a long time. Well, now I have looked at them. And I think it looks nice. So I will at some point, perhaps that will be the place where I put the latest thing that I've done. Maybe that would be nice. Don't know. Anyway, it's not got power or anything. They're just literally sitting in it. What? What's the filter? What's that filter with the two white knobs next to the Bafako thing? Do you mean you can't see that? Can you? Oh, that one? This thing here? That's the Perk VCA, if that's what you mean, next to the Bafako filter. And I keep forgetting how to use it. It's very annoying. But it's a useful module. I mean to do a video on it. It's there because I keep meaning to just do a little video on it because it's an envelope VCA. So VCA with an envelope built in, which is great. I think that's a great thing to do to stop you having to have those two things separately, because they're so unnecessarily separate often, I find. So it's an envelope with a VCA, and I can't exactly remember what the labeling means. I just wanted to fire the envelope and I couldn't remember how to do it. So I will look into that again at some point. Yeah. What are... Hang on. I'm going to... where was I? Yep, okay, there. Yeah, no, you don't need a wall of modules at all. Just turn my heater off. It's getting too hot in here. You see that happen. I mean, Bo Beats recently installed this enormous thing. So did Jeremy at Red Means Recording. This enormous panel of modules, which is a beautiful thing to look at, but no, not necessary. These cases, I think I got it from Anderton's. It's like, is it not even 100 quid? And like I say, it's not powered. It's just a vanilla case, but it's just a very handy. It looks great on a wall. Anything to plug things into. So I do most of my stuff in a couple of small cases. It's just easier for me rather than having everything kind of wired in and powered. That's too overwhelming to have such a wall of things which are going to be instantly usable and patchable into. I'd rather focus down on smaller arrangements of things. Folk Tech. No, I don't have anything from Folk Tech, funnily enough. What are some of the things you think differently about? Oh, I see. You're answering the question that I kind of posed. Well, first of all, I mean, I don't think starting with a semi-modular is necessarily the right way to go. I think you end up sort of wasting time. It's valid, certainly, as a way of thinking about patching. But it's not the same. It's like, I mean, the classic thing is, first thing you should do is go for VCV rack and software modular and things like that. And no, it's not the same. It's because, to me, I mean, some people love VCV rack, and that's fine, awesome, fill your boots. But for me, there's such a fine line between modular being desperately disappointing and being just the greatest thing you've ever played with. And it's a very small amount of leeway you have between those two states, I think. And I think if you cut out the tactile element, if you remove the hardware part of that, then you're always going to end up in the disappointing side of things, in my view. As I say, there's plenty of VCV rack users who would argue the opposite perhaps. But I think if you start in VCV Rack, it's either going to get hideously complicated really quick, or it's just going to sound disappointing, and you've not got the reward of the tactile interface to mitigate against that. When you have a little semi-modular, essentially you're still using it in the same synthesizer paradigm, so you're not really breaking away from that. I mean, I still struggle to break away from the way synthesizers work. I find that struggle all the time, and I have to sort of actively undermine myself and remind myself to use different things, to use the modular side of modular more than the synth side of modular. So I don't just end up having a really expensive, overly complicated mono synth, synth voice, if you know what I mean. So again, having a semi-modular kind of reinforces the synthesizer paradigm, so you end up in that same architecture, same way of doing things, the same structure, and it doesn't really, I mean, there's a little bit of patching you can do, some cross modulation and stuff, but it doesn't really take you outside of that. It's only when you have these individual pieces in your hands do you start journeying away from the regular synthesizer paradigm, I feel. Which might bring us nicely onto the sort of questions I've been sent. So I'll just get to the bottom of the chat to see if there's anything else, anything interesting somebody said, and then we'll have a think about those before I get too drunk, because we have some thinking to do, right? Hang on. Go away. Yeah, like I say, I'm not saying VCV Rack is not a way in. It is, clearly, for many, many people. I'm just saying why it's not how I would start people off, necessarily. Or would I? Oh, I don't know. What you want to say, give me 10 grand and I'll sort you out with some modular stuff. Any percussion module recommendations for industrial? No, I don't have any at all. I struggle with the whole percussion thing. I tend to use whatever's to hand. At the moment, I'm using some Jake's Custom Shops, cowbell, kick drum and snare drum, which are pretty cool. For industrial music, I don't know. You probably need a sampler and then you hit a pipe or something, don't you? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what defines an industrial percussion module. I think you can use anything for anything. But if there's someone in the chat who knows exactly what he's talking about, do go let him know. Noise engineering. Yes, exactly. See? Noise engineering. Yeah, there's a lot of things that do pretty much the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Why would you need 30 kick drum modules? I don't know. Why would you need 30 kick drum sounds? Why would you need 30 synthesizers? Why would you need different piano sounds, different effects boxes? I don't know. I think once we start asking why would you need, I think we're on a, you need to go and do something else. Because we're forever music. I think music technology. I mean, if you just want to make music on a single instrument that sounds the same all the time, go do that. That's fantastic. Plenty of pianists and cellists out there who can do that. That's amazing. Opera singers, just superb. But for the rest of us, we just like things that sound different. And so if you can find something which sounds different to something else, I'm going to get that. That sounds different. So I'll play with that and make that sound different. So, you're not going to use 30 different kick drums in a track, because you might not even be making a track. You might just like kick drums and like the way they feel and how they make you feel differently, the different ones that you use. I've got 2 or 3 really enormous kick drum modules that just do a kick drum. And I scratch my head too, going, why on earth am I using up all of this space just to make that kick drum? I mean, when I was a kid and I had a little sampler on my Commodore 64, my kick drum was me tapping the mic. That was my kick drum. I've never found anything better than that, ever. But yeah, people put a lot of thought into crafting kick drums, which, again, is fine, because we like difference. We like things to change. We like to find a different way of doing something and then tweak it, and then tweak it, and then tweak it again. So there you go. Oh, wow, the Empress Zoya. Yeah. See, that's interesting. But For me, a modular system within a system, I find those really deeply disturbing. It's like trying to get inside a machine to then do modular. I'd rather just have it all spewed out all over here. But no, it's a very impressive box. Interesting comment though. Yeah, I mean, frankly, who has the time? These poor people building and designing Eurorack modules. That's kind of why that's why we have this lovely little YouTube-y synth community, is because the people designing and making the modules, they're focused on that. And there's so little money in it that they really have to work hard to produce the modules and design the stuff and then make it work right. And I've met plenty of manufacturers who would just not be any good in front of camera, And sometimes even the demos of their own products are terrible, And so there's space, I think, for people, perhaps like myself or DivKid or whatever, to create the guides or the manuals or the reviews which show you how these things work, to give you a better idea, because the manufacturer can't always do it. Because sometimes it is just, one person doing the whole lot. And to try to put together a well-produced, look at me, well-produced video is difficult. It takes time and learning and all those sorts of things. So yeah, ideally every module should come with a detailed manual, explanation of how it all works, patch examples, and a video to show you how to do it. But it's a lot to expect, and I think that there's plenty of us out here who can do that for people on their behalf, and I think that's okay. I think that's healthy in some ways, frustrating in others. But I think that's okay. But interesting comments this morning. Good to see people engaging with the issues. And if you've not met me before, I can be a little bit sarcastic and rude. And I don't mean nothing by it. I just find that amusing. It's friendly banter, is what I would call it. So please, if I've trodden on your toes, I am sorry. I don't mean to. I'm just, gently taking the piss, okay? It's a friendly thing. Right, have I got to the bottom yet? No, people keep asking questions. Right, I need to make a decision. Yeah. Discovery modules, that's a great attitude. Up to a point. Up to the point. Because there is, occasionally I do come across modules that I just can't do a video of because I can't quite understand their value or use or what to do with them, and I know that they are really desperately, deeply important to the person who made them, and it's their baby, and I'm looking at this thing going, I just don't know what I'm supposed to do with it, or I can't. It's too difficult for me to have to learn, because it has a sort of interface where you've got to get the muscle memory, or you've got to absorb a whole lot of information about what everything does. And that can be difficult. I don't always have all the time in the world, whereas you've been building it for the last 3 years and know it inside out. So, sometimes a little bit of help is appreciated. Cool, Mr. Hoppy. That's a nice thing to say. Have I tried any cheap Behringer modules? Yeah, I got a whole rack of the ARP 2500 that they did. They're all right. The knobs fall off sometimes. Build quality is not great, but it sounds great. It's totally mystical, as in no one knows how to get sound out of it, because it's kind of an authentic copy, and so therefore doesn't work right. Doesn't work like we've come to expect modern modules to work. It's the same with their Mo copy ones, and their roller ones to a degree. I think perhaps their newer clones of actual gear, really annoyingly, they're probably a bit simpler, but their classic vintage stuff is very good value for money. It's not gonna survive like some other stuff will, but It's a good way in. I mean, if nothing else, for just one or two utilities, like for instance, a power supply for Eurorack is notoriously expensive, but the Behringer one is like 30 quid, and then it comes with the laptop power supply, which is worth 30 quid by itself. So that's a bargain if you're trying to power a case, So there are, we drop on morals for certain advantages at certain times. Anyway, right, I must get to this guy's questions, otherwise we're not going to do it, because we've been up here an hour now, and I'm sorry about that. He's probably gone to sleep. So, I don't really have any background to this, so other than the fact that these are questions sent to me by a guy doing a master's, and it's interesting stuff about tone and pitch and frequency and things. I'm not going to be very good at this, I fear, but I thought I'd bring them and we'll have a go at them and see if we can come up with some interesting thoughts. All right, ready? Are you scared? And then I'll go back to the jam. All right. So, question 1. How much do you find yourself thinking about tuning, pitch, or frequency when you're creating or talking about sound and synthesis? And what do those ideas mean to you in your own work? Look at that. I could pop that in the chat. How much do I find myself thinking about tuning, pitch, frequency when creating or talking about stuff? What do those ideas mean to you in your own work? So I'm trying to give as an authentic and transparent responses to these, rather than trying to overthink it. And my immediate response is, I don't think about these things at all. I do tune my oscillators, so I physically do that. Usually, I didn't this evening, and that might be something that you objected to. I just I eyeballed it, and as much as I eared it, I suppose. But normally speaking, I would get a tuner and tune my various oscillators before I start doing anything, just so that I have it together. But very often, if I just come to my rack to play, I'll just keep adjusting, and because I can't be bothered to get my tuner out and plug that in and fiddle about, because you've got to stop what you're doing, because you can't tune while an arpeggiation's going on or a sequence is going on. So I don't do it every time, actually. I do it when it's important to do so, but I don't do it every time. I usually would, if something's already running, I would just try to hear it in. And sometimes you get it right, and sometimes you don't, and sometimes it's slightly off, but it still sounds good. So I'm tuning to something which sounds good, as opposed to getting that exactly right necessarily. If I'm collaborating with somebody or playing with someone or need to do something specific, then yeah, I'll tune everything to C or A sometimes, I think. And then start from there. I mean, I used to have particular trouble with the qubit surface, which is a Karpler Strong module. Never had quite so much trouble with the Strymon, funnily enough, but with the qubit surface one, it was never seemingly in tune, and you're always having to adjust it. And then I think I'd have it in tune, and then I'd be massively off, and I'd be wanging the pitch all over the place trying to get it to sit nicely. It just seemed to be very, very easy to be slightly off, and that stringy sound was not very forgiving, I found. So does that mean I think about it? Well, I mean, I notice when things are out of tune. Not all, mostly. I have quite a high tolerance for it, because I don't have perfect pitch or anything of that nature. So I have a large tolerance for things being slightly out of tune, but I do try to get them together. Yes. I mean, if we're thinking about them in terms of musical notes, then it's of no consequence. As soon as I'm in modular, I've left notes behind. I mean, we use notes in quantizers, we use it for tuning, perhaps, but it doesn't have to be a note. I'm really playing with it, because again, I don't have perfect pitch, so I don't know what something is supposed to sound like, and so you're just ending up with differences in pitch. That's what you're playing with. You're playing with intervals as opposed to actual pitch, I think. So So in what I do, it's not a big deal. It's really not something I worry about or agonize over. Obviously, I like things to be in tune, because people will moan about it, and that'll end up making me look silly. and if you're on the internet, you don't want to look silly, do you? Does that answer that question? Perhaps. Oh wow, you're trying to dial in FM intervals. See, that's interesting. I get fed up with that so quick. Because FM to me is just that clangy sound. I enjoy that. I enjoy that movement through FM. I don't enjoy trying to find a clangy, sort of jammy noise that's tuneful in there. It's too much hard work to get that tone. I'd much rather go back to a sawtooth wave. Thank you very much. Yeah, the Korg, this one here. Has that got any? Does it have battery? I can't even remember. Oh, that screw's coming out. That's no good, is it? Yeah, I use this thing for tuning often. I've also got a little sort of 2 HP tuner, which is almost really good. It's got a whole series of lights that sort of go round and let you know how close you get into things. The slight frustration about it is that C is right at the bottom, and I nearly always tune to C when I'm tuning, and that means that the lights for the C are at the top. Half of them are at the top because it sort of rotates round. Whereas why couldn't they put the C in the middle, so then you could see exactly where you're in tune, as opposed to having to tune to an F or something. Anyway. The Astrolab. I really like the Astrolab. I think it's got a lot going for it. I think as something you can plug in and just play, it's immensely enjoyable, I think. And that's worth a load. It's not a synth person synth. No, not in the slightest. But it's so enjoyable to play that I just like having it knocking around. I'd have it permanently set up somewhere. Or rather, I'd like that, but sort of built into something a little bit more substantial. I mean, obviously there are the more substantial ones, but the little one's done really well. I don't mind a little keyboard too much. By the way, I should not get distracted. Flexibility. Cool. Right. So let's move on. So question 2: have you ever explored things like experimental synthesis, unusual tuning systems, or frequency-focused sound design? If so, how did you first come across them, and what stuck with you? Have I ever explored experimental synthesis? I mean, I've done some things like looking into Carpler Strong and how does that work and how do you make that happen. I've done a little bit of work on that, which is quite interesting. Ultimately, I end up using a Carpler Strong module as opposed to trying to synthesize that thing. That's one sound with a bunch of modules. I've looked into things like, it's not quite the same, something like a Krell patch in how do you create interesting generative music. But then again, you were talking about generating notes and bits and pieces as opposed to being interested in the actual tuning. I'm not that interested, honestly, in micro tuning, on purpose. Although, I mean, I say that I scrolled through somebody who did a microtonal song, and it was really interesting. I mean, I'm a guitarist as well, so I'm very aware that equal temperament isn't all it's cracked up to be, and when you tune things with harmonics, it gives the guitar a slightly different feel, to plugging it into your tuner. I think what I struggle with, although I say I don't have perfect pitch, but I do I have so much equal temperament baked into me through my years of listening to music that I struggle to work outside of it. So unless it's a single voice, or so if you're talking about unaccompanied choirs, choral music, that sort of thing, something which is using intervals and fifths and fourths and octaves and such like, which is not quite so baked in to the 12 notes in quite such the same way, that is just adorable and fabulous to listen to. But when you're dealing with slight shifts and slight microtonal stuff, unless you kind of know what you're doing, it tends to get frustrating, and I end up wanting to tune back into normality, for want of a better word. It's probably the wrong word, I should think. So, no, not really, not a whole lot, I would say. Why C, no flats? I use flats. I use the blues scale all the time. That's got 2 flats in it. But my son Arthur is doing music at school, GCSE level, and he asks lots of interesting questions because we never quite managed to get him to do any musical training. I meant to, or would have loved to have got him through some grades in something, although, I've never really seen that as necessarily necessary, but can be useful sort of thingy thing. So he's doing music at high school, and the high school teacher finds it really difficult because he hasn't done any musical exams, and so therefore she doesn't quite know what to do with him. Now, he's extraordinarily good at playing music and hearing music and all these sorts of things, and he's kind of settled on being a drummer as much as anything else, which is very cool. Why did I go down there? Oh, yes, because he keeps asking me questions. Like, he had to do a performance piece, so he had to put together a piece of music, which he then had to perform and record and stuff. And he did it in A flat. And he said, I don't know why. It's just where his hands fall on the piano, and that just seemed nice to him. And was asking me, why is that harder to play than something else? I'm going, A flat? Why, are you nuts? And it's a good question, because I'm just bringing my levels of bias and sort of colour to the table. I'm not really thinking about whether it's harder or easier or so on. I just recoil from scales that I had to do when I was a kid, when I did my grade 3 euphonium, and I had to play bloody B flat scale arpeggiated. That was hardcore. It's only grade 3, for heaven's sake. Anyway, so and also as a guitarist, in years gone by, you'd want everything to be in D or G or C if necessary. But funny enough, these days I tend to play bar chords or play up the neck all the time, and so it no longer matters what key anything is in, pretty much, because I no longer play open chords. So I've kind of got out. Mainly I developed or pushed myself into playing like that because I hated capos, because capos would never tune right. Here we go back to our tuning thing again. They would never tune quite right. They were almost, but not quite, and it would drive me nuts. So putting a capo on something would just be like... But it's funny because I'm tolerant in some places and just really intolerant in others. But capos would drive me nuts. We're all going off topic, right? I had a line 6 Variax over there, and I got the workbench stuff for it as well. And the very first thing I did was go inside the computer brain of my guitar, which is a bit of a weird thing to say, and I put in on one of the acoustic guitar settings a whole bunch of capo changes, so I didn't have to capo, because I play in church. This is what this comes from. I play in a worship band in church, and you could be playing anything. It could be anything, and it's usually been thrown at you by a keyboard player who says, here you go, and it's in G minor something or other, or it's in this, that and the other. And so horrible chords or horrible capos, because they've decided to pitch it, transpose it up and down because the singer can't sing that high, or the struggles and the and the trauma of trying to play in a worship band. But so you'd end up using the capo all the time, and it would drive me nuts. So I designed the internals of my Variax guitar to have 5 different capo positions on the slidey thing down here, which is genius. The weird thing about it though is you're playing open chords, but you've capoed, so the sound no longer matches what you're playing. So as long as the monitoring is loud enough and you can't accidentally hear your strings, you're fine. But if you can hear your strings, the whole thing just sounds bizarre. Anyway, this has gone off topic again. So let's go back to the next question. Yeah, tiny bit of theory is useful, not necessary. It's really difficult, that question, because theory can be so useful and so straight jacketing. It can hem you in where you kind of believe that things have to be a certain way. I've met a lot of musicians like that, and I don't know music theory well enough quite to be a pain in the arse about it, if you know what I mean. And now I find that fine. I'm sort of bumping along on I like things, I don't like things. I don't really care too much. Once you start caring too much, is it like being a grammar nerd, a pedant, you know? It's not necessarily going to do you any good once you get to the point of correcting everybody all the time. Yeah, he is a drummer, but you've still got to pass the exams, which assumes that you can play piano like a good one. Okay, question 3. What do sustained tones, drones, or long evolving sounds mean to you personally, either when you're listening or when you're creating? Now, they don't mean anything to me. I have not formed any emotional relationships or attachments to particular sustained notes. The question of whether I enjoy them is a slightly different one. But yeah, I absolutely do love sustained notes very much. The one piece of equipment I don't have, which I've always meant to, is an EBow. I keep meaning to do that one day. One day! I just feel such a fool playing it. That's the only thing. But yeah, I love long sounds, absolutely, which change over time. I don't like something which is constant. It just becomes white noise, I think. And that becomes a bit sort of dulling. But if something has a change to it over time, then I'm definitely all into that. Definitely all into that. I think there's another question where we can talk about. Yeah, the next question is probably more what I would like to talk about. I mean, funny enough, someone at the Synth Picnic on Saturday asked me if I could recommend a module for droning. And it's an interesting question, or a synth for droning. I should have thought about it a bit more on the side of the module side, because all modules drone, all oscillators drone, essentially. But what is it about something that drones that's interesting? Because funny enough, at the EMOM, not the one just gone, but the one before, there was a couple of guys there who just did a drone for like 15 minutes, and it was beautiful, really, really beautiful, with change, modulation going on. It wasn't static, it was moving. It becomes this sort of life force, this energy that moves. It's very, 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 very interesting. Yeah. Bagpipes? Well, yes. To a degree. Depends. I mean, if you're talking about hurdy-gurdy, yes, that kind of drone. Yeah, I've got a lot of time for that. I do have time for bagpipes. It depends what the rest of it is doing, because the sound can be great. It's just that what you tend to hear is a very hackneyed melody, and I don't think that helps. I think you can do some really nice pipe playing, particularly in a folk context, rather than a military tattoo type context. I think we're fed bad bagpipes. Is the problem. I think we can do better. Yeah, the VHIC. Oh, I've got to write an article on that. Don't have the first clue. Who has the first clue about that thing? I even spoke to the man who made it. He wasn't sure that he had a clue either. Okay, so the next question then, which sort of comes in from that, is from your experience, how do different tones, textures, or frequency ranges affect the way music feels emotionally or mentally? From your experience, how do different tones, textures, or frequency ranges affect the way music feels emotionally or mentally? Now, I'm not entirely sure how to answer this question because I'm not entirely sure what you're asking exactly. Because there's evidently some reason behind the question. There's something you're trying to tease out of us, I feel. But I don't know there's anything that specific. I don't think I know necessarily. I know when I hear, but I'm not intentionally looking for a particular thing or a particular range or a particular tone. I think it's more to do with it's something that you feel. Oh, that was question 6. I don't want to tell the wrong story in the wrong place. So trying to focus on this exactly then. I mean, I would agree with the statement that yes, they do. Different tones, textures, or frequency ranges do affect the way music feels emotionally. I think I don't necessarily hold with the idea that, what is it, for 432 hertz as opposed to 440 hertz, somehow tags into a deeper level of your soul. I don't think there are specific frequencies necessarily that are more soothing than others. Again, for me, it would be not about the specific frequencies. It would be about the relationship between a couple of frequencies. So if something sounds dissonant, then that'll have an effect on you. If something sounds harmonious, that'll have a different effect on you. I'm sure there's lots of research done on these sorts of things, but it's not something that I'm aware of in the slightest. And again, because I'm not tuning my oscillators to anything in particular, then it would be impossible for me to necessarily replicate a particular frequency or frequency range. I think that makes sense. But there is definitely a relationship. There's definitely an emotional response, an emotional change, a shift, if you like. And I think music can be an enormous power for good, and I think it is on the whole. It's very rare that music would even the punkiest, hardest clowncore type music, very little of it would push you into violence, except in specific contexts in a mosh pit, I suppose. But most overwhelmingly, music pushes away negative feelings. I think it replaces negative feelings. It can be extraordinarily healing and good for us mentally in all sorts of ways, even if whatever it is they're talking about in the music is the complete opposite of what you believe. You can still get a vibe from something. You don't have to understand the language, and that can be the language of the instruments as well as the language of the voice. I think it's an extraordinary thing, which is why I persist in being in it. Okay, so in your own work, how do you see the relationship between more traditional Western tuning scales and more experimental or alternative approaches to sound? That's a very beautiful thing, Mr. Boo's Modular. I've lost it. No, here it is. In my own work. Okay, so I would say, largely speaking, the vast majority of my work is in Western scales. Now, as I say, the tuning of that may not be precise, but the relationship between notes is going to be, for the vast majority of time, it's going to be on a Western scale. I'm a guitarist, right? I said that, excuse me. excuse me, I still don't know. I've not managed to get into my head understanding what the scales are. Now, we deal with scales all the time. I've got half a dozen different things that have got a scale knob on, and I can choose between major, minor. Now, those ones I understand. Harmonic minor, pentatonic, mixed Lydian, Lydian, the one that begins with D. All of those. I don't know what they are. I don't know what they mean. I know that when I select various ones, that it starts sounding nicer to me. If that makes sense. In some ways, I just need a major and a minor, but I don't want all those notes. So I quite like a harmonic minor because I know that some of the notes are missing, and I know that the collection of notes that are there sounds nice, but I don't know what they are. It's like if somebody said, could you play the mixed Lydian scale on the guitar? No, I couldn't. I've no idea what that is, but I know a bunch of notes that sounds nice, and that might be the similar thing. One day I will sit down and bloody learn it, because I'm sure it'll be useful to me in getting these things to work. Thank you, Frangolino. 1980. It's a good year. That's very kind. So what am I talking about? So yeah, I'm almost exclusively working in Western tuning and scales. I mean, in my first row of modular, I had a touring machine, which was my main everything really. It's probably the most useful module to have. I can see it. It's right over there. It's nearly always within reach, even if I don't use it so much these days, because I have other things which use Turing type algorithms, but run them through quantizers, because I would always pair the Turing machine with a quantizer. I used it for a little while before I had a quantizer, and just kind of try to tell myself I really enjoyed this microtonal sort of music. I had a sample and hold, funnily enough, before a quantizer, so I could at least, rather than having a varying note, I could have a set note, one that held on for a little while. But I didn't really. I think I would be lying if I said I enjoyed not having a quantizer. I tend to always need to have it, I think. I mean, I would very much like to be more hip and experimental and interesting than that, but sadly I'm not. I mean, I've got a quantizer here and it's fabulous. I love it. I love all sorts of things that quantize, because it allows me to choose notes, which is precisely what modular should not be about. Modular should be about letting the notes fall where they may, you know. But no, I'm wanting to grab and dictate and stuff, because still in my head I'm looking potentially to perform, looking potentially to record, and want to have something which I can repeat and then do again. And it's part of my own struggle, I think, with modular versus synthesizers, is trying to get myself out of that mindset, to try to not have to keep falling back to the Western scales and to the normal ways of doing things. But, you know, that's something that I wrestle with. But what happens is that the quantizer wins, ultimately. Okay, question 6. Yeah. If you're not hip, buy a quantizer. So question 6. Can you describe a moment where a piece of sound-focused or sonically driven music, rather than song-based music, created a strong reaction in you, and what about it stayed with you? So can I describe a moment where a piece of sound-focused or sonically driven music created a strong reaction? What about it stayed with you? Well, I mean, I might have told this story before, perhaps, because it's one of those things that has stayed with me. So I might have articulated it previously, but I remember distinctly, I can still smell the place. There's a music shop in London called Fop. Now, this was when I was still working at Turnkey, I think, in Charing Cross Road, and down the bottom of Charing Cross Road at Cambridge Circus was Fop. It's still there. Well, I'm pretty sure it moved. It seems to be further away from Cambridge Circus than I remember, because I went there recently. But anyway, it's a record shop, right? And I had some time. I must have been waiting for somebody or something. Maybe waiting for my girlfriend to arrive. Don't remember that. But I was in this record shop. And I was browsing. As you do. Come on, it's not hard. Come on, sort yourself out. What are you talking about? I was browsing and just looking at records and just looking through. And I ended up downstairs. And someone had put a record on. And the record was, now I'm difficulty remembering, was something by the Polyphonic Spree and Elliott Smith, I think. And it was the Thumbsucker Proxy. Was that the movie? It was a soundtrack to a movie anyway. I mean, I read into this a little while ago because I was just interested because I didn't know any of this at the time. But it was something like Elliott was working on the music and then he got sick and I think died, and Polyphonic Spree sort of took over the music. Now, Polyphonic Spree are amazing, extraordinary, a bunch of creative people. I love that. I wasn't aware of Elliott's stuff particularly before that, but I have seen things since, and he's was quite an amazing guy. I think that's my understanding of it. Anyway, there's a particular track on that record which lasts for about 20 minutes, and it's kind of the same thing over and over again, but it's slightly odd. It's not sequenced as much as it's sort of played. I mean, it might be tape loops or something along those lines, but there's no vocals in it. It's just a piece of music, and I can sort of hear it dimly in the back of my head, but I couldn't really describe it to you particularly. But it feels like it's got a little bit of harmonium or squeeze box in there, and it sort of drones, and then it breathes, and then it changes, and it drones, and it breathes, and it changes, and I don't disagree with the aliens tracker beeps. Don't lose my train of thought. This piece of music was going on, as I say, it just went on and on and on. But the strange thing was that in this space, the whole space changed. I mean, there was a dozen people down in there, all of us just browsing, and nobody seemed to move. Everything slowed down. There was not the bustling coming and going of people going upstairs, downstairs, because we were in the basement. And there's something about the entire physicality of that room which was transformed during this music. And it started off, the place seemed just, normal somehow. Normal, slightly grey, but, warm, because it was a record shop full of lovely records. But after about 10 minutes of this thing, the place was sparkling. There was a vibe, a sense of something in the air. And to me, everyone seemed to be smiling. We were all kind of dazed as this music had worked on our brains. It was it was loud. It enveloped like the whole place. And it was just a really, really beautiful thing. Sort of just, I hadn't quite been aware of its transformational power, I think, before that moment. And it inspired me to write. I wrote 3 or 4 albums of meditation music, kind of inspired by that moment. This was back 20 years ago, and it really made me feel that music can be transformational, that it is at its root transformational, that it can change space and time, it can change an actual place for the better, not just make you feel nice, but seem to change the whole atmosphere in a physical space. And I found that completely fascinating. And it was from then that I think it was about the same sort of time that I quit my job there, and I took a year out to write some music. And I I decided that I made a conscious decision that I'm going to write meditative music, some meditation, ambient, electronic music was my plan, and that's what I did. I wrote a few albums of the stuff, played it at. It was religiously inspired. Also, it had Bible verses in it and bits and pieces like that. That was definitely what I was trying to focus in on, and I performed it, ran workshops on it and stuff like that, and absolutely witnessed the power of slow-moving modulated music and the way that it can affect a crowd of people. People who have come in and are open to the idea of relaxing and immersing themselves in music, and that's what I did. That's what I brought. I bring that along and perform that kind of live, laptop-esque back in those days, and but I'd also talk and read the Bible, and it was a meditative time of stuff. And there were elements in that, as I say, where I felt this sense of transformation. It could be spiritual, it could be God, it could be energy, it could be nothing at all. It's really hard to pin down. But absolutely, the idea of strong reactions, sonically driven strong reactions, is just true and alive. And I think our only barrier to it is impatience and our attention. Down in that basement, I was not really looking at the records. I was just sort of killing time. I think, pretty sure I was killing time, and so my attention wasn't really on anything, and so it was taken up by this sound that was around us. And it would have been so easy to just walk out of that shop and ignore it because it was just the background sound, but it was amazing, absolutely amazing. And yes, that stayed with me very much. I'd like to do some more. I've only had the time for all these things. Time. Oh yeah, we're all right. Half an hour. Yeah, there was a particular record, just a couple of other examples. A particular record I listened to when I was a kid, which was Vangelis's China. I don't know why we had it in the house, but we did. My dad's, I guess. And is it Kung Cho or is it The Long March? One of the others of those two. The one that goes boop, 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 boop. That's good. I thought was amazing. I would listen to that on over and over again. I'd say I listened to it on repeat. No, I didn't. I would listen to it, then I'd have to pick the needle up and put it back and listen to it again. Pick the needle up, listen to it. I loved that piece of music. And there were bits like that where people talk about cinematic music as well. Yeah, absolutely. I used to bathe in that sort of stuff. Absolutely. Yeah, it's easy to come up with things that stay with you. Number 7. Do you think your personal background, musical influences, or listening habits shape how you approach or understand sound? If so, how does that show up in your creative work? All right. I think inevitably, yes. Yeah. Again, it depends on how you understand the question. How does it shape my approach? How I approach or understand sound? I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what that means. But if we're talking about if we're talking about the music that I make or the sounds that I try to make, are those influenced by my musical preferences? Then yes, absolutely. I mean, so often, I don't know if anybody else feels this, as someone who's because I could have been famous, I could have been a pop star, I could have made fantastic records in the 80s, and 90s and noughties. I could be touring now as a nostalgia group. Absolutely, it could have been me. And I don't know how many others of you feel that sometimes when you hear a piece of music and you think that's great, and then you think, I could have done that. I literally have the gear. I could have done that. It's so simple. It's so brilliant. Everyone loves it and is buying it. I could do that. I could go to my shed now and do that. Do something very similar to it. And yet that not be not be a thing. Not be a thing anybody wants to buy. So inevitably, things that I hear influence what it is that I'm trying to create. And often I find I've heard something in particular that I really liked, and I come here and try to recreate it. And of course I never can. But what comes out is something which is me, ultimately. Because I can't, particularly with modular, you can't recreate a thing you've heard, because there's no way you necessarily have the same sort of stuff. Whereas with a synthesizer, you find a patch which sounds a lot like the thing that they had. Probably. It's very different with modular. And so you end up trying to put something together, which then just takes you off on another tangent and another road, and you find yourself creating something different. At least that's what I find. So I am absolutely, from the outset, inspired by things that I know and things that I hear. And then end up doing something different. Like there's that track. It's not Massive Attack. Something around that sort of era. Oh god damn it! What is it? I can hear it in my head. Which is like the ultimate ambient track, and I've always got that in my head whenever I sit down to try and write a meditative piece of music. There's always that going on. Again, I've just got to get past that track. Oh, who is it by? I can't think. Portishead. Well, it could have been. It goes. How does it go? It's got this delayed kind of wind instrument in it, or brass instrument. Morcheeba. No, it's all that sort of idea. It goes do 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 do, and it's ambient man, and you just go do 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 do. It goes away. What else is in it? You know, KLF. Going off topic again. God darn it. Yes. Mr. Boo's modular. Yeah, I do. Do I find it hard to translate an idea in your head to a patch on a synth rig without it becoming a completely different thing? Yeah, absolutely. That's what happens all the time. All the time. What if you can come up with a name? That'd be great. I can't remember it now. Yeah, it's not that Massive Attack one that's also in my head. That's used all the time, like I use in the West Wing when the daughter was having her druggie problem in the club. It wasn't that one. Anyway, let's try to focus on. Maybe it'll come back to me later. How does that show up? Yeah, no, I mean, I think like what your man says, it's much more. The orb could have been the orb. It's much more about the being unable to interpret or translate those feelings, those influences, that personal background, but unable to translate that into music. All I can do is use that as an impetus to try, and then I have to just join in with whatever it is that's happening, if you see what I mean. Little fluffy clouds. Nah, it's not little fluffy clouds. No. It's not little fluffy clouds. Yeah. I'm tempted to say it's a Staunton lick, but it's not. It's not. See, if I was to Google classic ambient tracks. No, it's not little fluffy clouds. See, I've now got it mixed up in the head with Massive Attack. I'm a disaster with these sorts of things. Okay, next question. I'll come back to the other one. I just want to make sure I get this done. How do everyday sounds like environmental noise, machinery, ambience, or background textures influence the way you listen to or create music? How do they? For me, I don't think they do necessarily. I live and make music in a non-treated space. So I have building work going on over there. I've got flipping cockerels and chickens in that direction. Got a dog barking over there. So those things I ignore. You know, I don't tend to use them as part of what I'm trying to do. I find it a little bit, you know, to introduce birdsong. I mean, now there's a question. Because it feels kind of hackneyed, you know. It feels kind of trying too hard when you've got the waves washing in. I mean, I flipping wrote a track back in 1985 that had that wave sound from the DX100 coming in. You're thinking too dancey. Anyway, so don't get distracted. Try to focus on what I'm doing. What was I saying? Oh yeah, no, environmental sounds. But on the other hand, having done some modular outside where I'm recording, and I'm recording into, I've got this recorder here I tend to use. Oops. This fella. It actually has 4 inputs. You've got these 2 mics on the front. This is what I make all my videos with, generally speaking, this, except for a live stream when I use this particular microphone. But generally when I'm making my videos, I use the microphones on this. But when I'm out on location or doing a gig, I'll leave this recording the ambient sound and then plug the output of whatever it is I'm using through the back end here to record it as 4 channels. And actually, when recording a live set, having ambient sound mixed into the track, you know, not all the way up, just a little bit of that in the background, is really, really good. It definitely lends something to what you're doing. Similarly, I've done some outside recording, and having the sound of nature there is kind of nice. I've also done live streams and jams in here when it's been raining, and you can hear the rain very, very clearly on the roof. And it brings in an element of environmental sound that's, you know, it's appropriate. It's nice. It fits in there. It lands in there. And you know, can be awesome. So yeah, it can absolutely, it roots you in something, I think. But I mean, I would tend to use it sparingly, and also tend to use it unintentionally, I think, as well. It's something which, if it's there, that's great. But if you end up trying to force that in somehow, I don't think that's right. It sort of needs to be incidental, I think. So you just have to put up with whatever it is that's on the recording, you know, as opposed to trying to get rid of that helicopter going over or this, that, and the other. It has to become part of it. Yeah. Okay. Here's a good example of that. Is that I went to this gig of a friend of mine. It was on the Thames, and it was in the sort of the shell hull of a boat tied up at the side of the quay. Near Battersea, I think it was, and he was playing. He does weird things with guitars. He, you know, nails things to them and sets them on fire, that kind of thing. But it wasn't his set in particular. But it was another one of the people who performed was playing on these amazingly sized flutes, you know, bass flutes and things like that. Amazing sounds going on. And they were going through sort of loop pedals, I think, and stuff, and they're just building this thing. And we were in the shell of this ship, so you couldn't see over the edge, you couldn't see the Thames, you were just in the bowels of this ship. It was all open-topped, you know, it was just a shell. And as they were performing, as they were playing, this police boat went past very, very fast, and it had its siren on, and you had this Doppler effect go past. But it was just superb. It's like you'd never heard anything like it. It was just amazing. And of course the boat then started going as this thing gone past. So everything kind of all went out of sorts. But it was just beautiful. And it just dropped in there, this incidental arrival of this sonic texture penetrating into the listening space that you were in. You know, beautiful. And you can't You can't do that on purpose, I don't think. Okay, question 9. When you hear... hang on. I've thrown it away. Oh, where is it? When you hear sounds that are unfamiliar or unconventional, what tends to grab your attention first? Tone, texture, movement, emotion, or something else? Rhythm, possibly? I'm very rhythmic. Very rhythm-focused, I find. So it's the movement of something that tends to draw me in, I find, as much as anything. A kind of a build, a deep thunder, a rumble, yeah, that tends to be what I hook into more than the actual tones or sounds, perhaps. Pulsing, I like a good pulsing. Oh, I need to write this one here. Escape rotations, that's an interesting question. No, it wasn't air. I tend to get emotional when I'm making music. Certainly, not always. No, not by a long chalk, but sometimes, yes. Yeah, there's definitely times when, I've found a groove or I found something that I really like, and it's just nice. But in some ways, I don't know that it's the music that's generating the emotion as much as it's triggering thoughts inside me, which is generating the emotion. This is slightly contradictory, perhaps, to what I said earlier about music being absolutely transformational, which it is. But it's its way that it can be. I'm not in. I don't know whether... I don't know what I'm talking about now. It can be all those things, I think. I remember, for instance, when the pandemic first came, I did a big jam in the shed. Because everything was just so horrible. Everything felt so heavy and damning and out of our control, And I just came here, I did a live stream and I jammed. I didn't really say very much, but we just made some music. And that was deeply emotional, And I brought the emotion into the shed, I think, as I started to do it. So it just depends. It depends. The reality of my existence in music is that I do it as a job, and so it can't always be emotion. I can't... put myself through the ringer every time I sit down to write a little article about a piece of gear. It's just not possible. You would be exhausted. So in some ways, the nature of my work means that I've had to become a bit more detached from that idea. However, it doesn't mean that I am entirely. It means that I have to be at times. It's like, for instance, this morning I played in church. And I played awesome guitar this morning. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. And that was really, really, really affecting and really, really good. And that was awesome. I don't feel the same way necessarily when I'm reviewing a piece of gear or when I'm trying something out or if I'm just working on something. But it comes, in some ways I don't feel I'm fortunate enough to have the opportunity to emotionally invest in the music that I'm making. I don't have the time or the energy. It takes a lot out of you. And my energy levels have been poor really since COVID. And I don't think I've fully recovered from that. I find it much, much harder to find the spare time to work on my own thing. I can do the daytime, I can last the day mostly. A nap in the afternoon would be a nice thing, but I can last most of the day to do the work that I need to do, which is all music and electronics based. What I'm struggling with is to find that time later on in the evening, perhaps, to just enjoy the process of making music and find stuff. So that thing is a bit more rare for me, simply because my job is like that. Because I've been talking to other people who say, yeah, I do my day job, then I come home and my synthesizer's there and I can sit there and just play. And I think that's beautiful. I wish I felt like that. But I can't, because I've had that bloody synthesizer on my desk all day and I've had to write a review of it, and it's a very different experience than playing something emotionally. So it's that strange paradox you get into when you're a reviewer of gear, is that you love gear, you like to review it, but in the process and action of doing that removes the emotional connection to the gear that you would like to retain in order to make the music that you ultimately wanted to make to get into this in the first place. That makes sense. Yeah, it's a problem. I mean, yeah, there was this quote. People say that, if you find the thing that if you find that one special thing you want to do with your life and you can do it as a job, then you never work a day in your life. That's bollocks. Such nonsense. If you find your dream job, the thing you're most passionate about, if you find that and do that as a job, that means you will work pretty much for nothing. You will work for every hour there is to do that job. You will kill yourself to do it for as long and as much as you can, and you will take so much shit that you shouldn't normally take because it's your passion. So finding your passion and doing it as a job is the worst decision you can possibly make, folks. I don't really mean that, but it's not what people say it is. It has its downsides. Right. Last question, I think, before we find out what that bloody piece of music is that I've been thinking of. Where do you personally see frequency-focused or experimental sound synthesis fitting into creative practice? And separately, do you think it has any role in social connection or well-being? Was it Orb? I don't know. It might be Orb. Might have been Underworld. Enigma. Enigma? I don't think it was Enigma. It was instrumental, ambient music. That's one you were thinking about. Could have been. I'll look it up in a minute, all right? That's funny. Did I put this one up there? Yeah, I did. So, where do you personally see frequency-focused or experimental sound synthesis into creative practice? Do you think it has any role in social connection or well-being? I don't really see it as distinct from any other form of music. I don't see how that has to be different, because the question's posed as if to say that it's separate from other forms of music somehow, because frequency focus just means melodic, right? Experimental synthesis fitting into creative practice. I think it's a sort of thing which could be encouraged more. From talking about this and thinking about this, I think that this is the area that I struggle with the most, because I'm constantly pulled into the Western traditional synthesizer paradigm. Constantly, everything wants you to play in that way. Every keyboard wants you to play in that way. And so I personally need encouragement to step outside of those restrictions, to step outside of that environment and that world. So to look into things differently, I think people need encouragement and resources and tools to do so, because we don't know. We're not taught it particularly. We don't get a chance to listen to it. It's rare. I mean, occasionally at a live performance you get to hear something which is different and interesting. Occasionally you stumble upon something like Suzanne Kiani doing that sunrise something with Doody Flip. What's her name? I'm really good with the memory today. Which is all done on booklers and strange and weird and and wonderful. Or watching Molten Sububnik do something bizarre just with Ableton Live, you know, and more often than not, you get the opportunity to see that live as opposed to get fed it through any media outlet. There's no one that's feeding you that stuff. Spotify's not coming up with some playlist of atonal music for you, and you wouldn't necessarily enjoy it if you did, because I think it's so outside of our natural experience that if you just heard it, it would be wrong. It would feel dissonant. It would feel like it's out of place. But if you were in an environment, in a gig situation where you can see the people do the work, that's a very different experience. And I think that's where you can really appreciate something of that nature. But I think ultimately we need to be encouraged to do so. You know, it needs to somehow be baked in. So when you talk about it being a creative practice, it's something which we have to practice to do. Definitely. Without a doubt. Because it's not natural. Not natural. Because it's not part of our, you know, unless you've lived in particularly experimental circles, it's just simply not part of our experience. So do I think it has any role in social connection or well-being? Yeah, potentially, because it is very much about live. It's about live music, I think. And getting people together to talk about it, I think is useful. Which ultimately leads to better well-being. There you go. That's a neat ending. Not a very deep ending, particularly at the end. Because I don't know if it has... I don't know what role it could have, particularly. Do I think it has any role in social connection? Because again, I'm not really seeing exactly what it is that you mean by what this is that's different to other things. Because music is inherently social, although also not. But I believe it can be. And extraordinary for our... What did you miss? Extraordinary for our well-being. Okay, so cool. There you go. That's my 2 hours, right? So if I was to put classic ambient instrumental tracks, oh, AI, right, is saying Brian Eno, Tangerine Dream and Aphex Twin. It's going to be really disappointing when I find it, I'm sure. Spanish Castles in Space. Was it that? I don't think so. Will I even recognise the name if I see it? I think that I don't even know. It's not classical. I'm never going to find it, am I? It's going to be next to impossible. Music for airports? No, see, it's definitely not that. It's much more clubby than that. So anyway, what did you say? You said Enigma. It wasn't Return to Innocence. No, that's not it. Sadness? Don't think it was. I'm not getting any sound out at all. I wonder why that is. Speakers. Oh, for heaven's sake. No, that's not it. God damn it. What is it? What is it? It's going to drive everybody crazy. No, it's not that. I was cooler than that. Pretty sure I'm cooler than that. Cooler than Enigma. God damn it. I mean, okay, something else I can look at quick. Just hang on a sec. Hang on a sec. If I look in my old folder of music, right, that was probably a Napster share, it'll probably be in that. It wasn't 80s though, was it? It would be 90s. Give us a second. Oh, I'm never going to find it. Never going to find it. I don't think it was on electronic. No, that's all too old. Wasn't Dread Zone. Oh, God darn it. No. Wasn't Moby. Wasn't More Chiba. Do. Come on. Could be left field. Could be left field. It's not that left field. Could be left field. Not Born Slippy. Could be left field. You're welcome to go, by the way. I'm sorry to keep you all here. Let's say left field. But then what would it be? There you go. Found it. Melt. There you go. That was the one that was always in my head, I think. Yeah. This. See? I was exactly right. I was exactly right. That to me, at the time, was just like the ultimate piece of ambient music that I was trying to create. I was trying to create that over and over and over again. And I always felt I could never do anything as good as that, was what was always in my head. And whenever I approached to sit down and write a piece of meditation ambient sort of music, it was that would fill my head until I was doing something which then left that place behind. Do you know what I mean? There you go. God, wow, you're such squares. How did you not come up with that, hey? Honestly, it's a classic. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Anyway. So, yeah, we nearly had the ratio, Ken. See, that's it. I'm going to be having me copyright swiped. See, I knew it was a good track. I knew I wasn't an idiot. Anyway, we should probably leave it there, I think, because it's late. I've no idea whether Jason's doing his gym jam thing tonight. Maybe that was last week when I normally do it. So that's been interesting. It's been a really interesting thought experiment of going through all this stuff. Has given me something to talk about, that's for sure. I hope you found it interesting too. Adamski. Yeah. Anyway, so I hope that was interesting in one way or another. We looked at some things. We drank some beer. We talked about interesting frequency-related stuff about modular and bits and pieces. So cool. I think that's a live stream well done. I don't say so myself. So just to round ourselves off, was there anything else I wanted to talk about? Oh, I'm sure there was tons, because I've got Synth East just around the corner. So I had Synth Picnic yesterday. It was great. It was probably the busiest one we've had yet. I've now rented out 3 or 4 bits of gear, which is great. That's exactly what I've been trying to do. So that feels really good. I'm going to keep on doing it for the moment. I've had this brilliant idea where I'm going to rent myself one of the containers in St Saviour's Yard in Norwich, which they've just put together a whole bunch of sort of containers. Do you know what I mean by containers? Back of the lorry type containers, and turn them into workshops and workspaces and creative things and stuff. I would love to have one of those that I could work in, make videos in, and turn into kind of a permanent Synth Picnic, or later a weekly Synth Picnic, where people can come and use the stuff, rent the space to make their music and borrow the modular and all those sorts of things. That would be brilliant. That's kind of been what I'm looking for, I think. Something like that. A community sort of space that's rough ready and ready to be made into something awesome. I'd love to do that. I have this kind of feeling at the moment that I want to break out of my shed. I feel that there's now that my kids are more grown, there are limitations around being so connected to the house, being so at home, in some ways being lonely, stuck in here by myself. I kind of feel that I end up going in little circles and perhaps not getting things done as I could. And also I live in this massive mess, whereas I could leave all the mess here and take the important stuff to a new little studio and start trying to make that work. It's just, I'll then have to find another, I don't know, 500, 600, 700 quid a month, won't I? How am I going to do that? But it's, it feels, I've got my eye out for something like that anyway. I'm not quite sure what I will bring into being, but once I have a stupid idea in my head, it usually rattles around for a good long time before I can shake it out. But Synth Picnic is continuing. It's good, getting lots of great feedback, and that's been great. So I'm going to continue to do that. Thanks ever so much for people who have supported it and come along. That's been great. So in 2 weekends' time, we have Synth East, of course, the big festival of the year. I'm very excited about it. I need to put some modular together so I can do a performance. That would be good. All the manufacturers are booked in. I think all ready to go. As far as I know, all the performers are coming. I've booked the hotel. It should be great. There's still space on the Friday night. If people like to come along and see an interesting film about the Studio Electrophonique and hear a couple of old duffers talk fascinating things about the music industry, I think that'll be should be a fun night. And I've also got, I think, 2 places left on the workshop on the Sunday. So if you're interested in getting into electronics and understanding circuit design, then sign up. It's a brilliant thing. It'll be a brilliant sort of middle of the day thing on Sunday to chew on. That'd be great. So that's coming up. From my point of view of reviews and bits and pieces, I have no idea. It's all gone to hell. Too much drowning in stuff as ever. So not quite sure what I'm going to do, but I have some master plan, I'm sure. But what I've had to focus on sort of this month, this new year, really is just on paid work. So I don't have much in the way of videos coming along at the moment. I need to knuckle down and get some stuff finished, but I'll see what I can do between here and Synth East and beyond. But plenty. Need to do some DIY. I keep saying that, and I've got lots of good projects to do. Got some Access modular stuff to build. I've got some Thonk stuff to build. I've got some Bafaco stuff to build. Got some Erica Synth stuff to build. Got that biopower stuff to build. Lots of exciting DIYing to do. Said security, yeah, I don't have any. No, I mean, I've got loads. I have loads and loads of shed security. I've got rabid dogs. I've got a moat with sharks in it. I don't think there's such a thing. I think if you have a wooden space, then someone with a saw can get in, can't they? So you're welcome to send me a question about it, and I can give you an honest answer. By all means, which is there's nothing to stop anyone breaking down this door, really. Particularly. Yeah. Okay. So on that note, it's a prop. Yeah, this is all green screen. It takes a dozen production designers to come up with the look of this to make it look so authentically shabby. It's amazing. Great. Right, I overstayed my welcome. So thanks ever so much for sticking with us. It's been fun. I've enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon. Hope to see you at Synth East. And as I have said many times, and again, you're very, very welcome to come and say hello. Don't be shy. I tend to be shy. I tend to be, I look very busy. I'm off to do a thing. I'm very much doing a thing. I'm really good at looking busy. So if you see me at Synth East and you want to say hi, please do. It's great. I love it. So do say hello. Feel free to buy me a beer or anything of those sorts of things, for real. That'll be great. Particularly after I've done the little performance I'm doing with Scanner in the Saturday night. After that, then I can get drunk is the key. Or maybe even the Friday night. Cool. Right. Great. I'll find my outro screen. It's on here somewhere. Where is it? Is it that one? What's that? That's not that one. That one? No, that's not anything. That one. That'll do. I'll stick that on. Cool. So I really appreciate your time and your engagement this evening, which has been off the charts. It's been brilliant. Thank you very much. So go and have fun, make some music and make some tunes and all that kind of business. And yeah, cheers, see you soon.